I want to go back to the example that you used in your previous experience when you said rather than making it about the person, make it about what exists around the person, right? Because obviously, and Darius's question is in his example, the environment was set up such that someone who behaved in that way would be rewarded, right? With a greater position, I'm assuming probably a greater rate of pay, a higher seat of power over even more people. And the fact that it still sticks with him to this day means that it had a big impact on him. But something in the part in your story that really stuck with me was someone asked, well, what about all the things around? And it makes me question, if you're not in an explicit leadership position, that doesn't necessarily mean that you don't have a level of power or a position of power exactly where you are. And so how do you start to identify the level of power that you have where you are and how to effectively utilize that, right? So in Darius's example, it seems like people were hesitant to kind of push back, right? And ultimately the person who was the most forceful benefited. But in your example, it seemed like the person who wasn't necessarily in that seat of power conjoined efforts with people who were around it to create an argument or a position that other people who had more power could buy into to change the environment. So I guess to simplify it, how do you start to identify the level of power and effect that you can have from where you are, even if you aren't in a quote unquote leadership position?
Yeah, that's really well said, Jay. I mean, I think we have more power than we think, especially when someone sort of takes the reins like this person did, and for career advancement, just started doing things that maybe others in the team wanted to be involved in. It's really, this is like a kind of like a story about, a position of power that was just seized, and then folks felt helpless to do anything, and that helplessness, or what I wrote about in my book Joy of Agility is, we can be resentful or we can be resourceful. And a lot of times, if we're sitting there and staying resentful and quiet and just unhappy for long periods of time, we're stuck. And really, to grow in your psychological safety, to grow in your career, you've got to not be stuck, not let yourself be stuck. So, what Jay I think is saying is it's not so much the positions of power. It's you're more powerful than you think, and you could have even potentially, I don't know, worked with your colleagues to say, we don't like this situation. Let's bring it up, or let's like address this somehow together in a safe way, to say this situation with this one person taking the reins and buffering us from the client, this is not working well. And to do that in a safe way, maybe it's not just you, maybe it's you and several colleagues together, safely to a upper level executive manager above that person, maybe, or something like that. I just know for me, when I feel stuck, it is a sign that I have something to learn and that I have some ways to grow. And I need to sort of find a way to become resourceful. What could I do? What are things that could possibly get me around this? And then there's the book, The Obstacle is the Way. It's a book by Ryan Holiday. That was an obstacle for you, a major obstacle. And, in the future, you could look at it as, well, what was it teaching me? What could it have brought me to? A lot of these things I find are problems or lessons designed for our, education. So they're painful, but they're great lessons for us.